Hi, I'm Janel Amella. I'd like to welcome you to I Am Empowered, a show of validation, motivation, and empowerment. Today we have a very, very special guest, a friend of mine, and just an incredible woman that has overcome unspeakable horrors in her life and has turned her life into a teaching tool, a cautionary tale. She empowers other women with her story. Please welcome her with me and meet my friend, Doris. Did you see any red flags through the course of your relationship that you went, this is not normal, this sucks?
As a matter of fact, yes, I did see red flags early in our relationship, but what happens is when we are in love, we don't want to see that side of someone whom we've fallen in love with. So what I used to do with that is rationalize the red flags. So I often would say, Doris, you're overreacting. It's not as bad as you think, or maybe you're seeing it in a different light.
Right.
It's not that bad. And so I often would have, that gut instinct that something was off, if that makes sense. Yet I rationalized it.
Right. Well, I know for myself that when I was experiencing domestic abuse in my marriage with my ex-husband, I was embarrassed, and it was so shameful, and I don't know, I think I felt so alone, Did you feel that way?
Oh yes, I felt completely alone. And I think for me, because I did not have that physical abuse during our relationship, the physical abuse did not actually happen until he kidnapped me that night. And so while there was some sexual type of abuse, he never hit me. He never once struck me. He never shoved me or pushed me. It was a lot of emotional and mental and psychological manipulation.
Just tear you down.
Right, making me feel like the most worthless person out there. And then of course he would build me up and then
they have
tear
a strategy,
me down.
don't they? I remember
Yes.
my ex-husband told me, and I was like in my mid-30s, and he said, you're old and you're fat and your looks are gone and no one's gonna want you. You're lucky that I even pay attention to you. Right. And I believed him.
Right. And we do, because I think in those situations we do have sort of a little bit of low self-esteem. And here is this man who at first, because when we first meet them, they don't always show you that side of them.
They actually, I was really happy.
Right.
For like 6 months or a year. I thought, wow, I just hit the mother load. I got a great guy and I'm so happy. I found my soulmate.
Yes.
God, was I wrong.
Yes, and that's exactly how I felt, Janelle, is he wined and dined me. I had 2 little girls at the time. He would bring gifts for my little girls. He would bring gifts for me. He would bring me home-cooked meals that he would prepare himself. And, when you think about an abusive person or controlling person, I thought, well, a controlling person usually attempts to, be the machismo type, if that term, you've heard that term where it's machismo, where you have to do the woman duty in the home, I do the man duty. And it wasn't like that. He often would help me clean, he would help me cook. He just was a wonderful provider, and he told me I was beautiful every day. And I never had that before. I never was told I was beautiful every day. And so this was extremely important to me because I did have low self-esteem. I was abused as a little girl. I was sexually molested as a little girl. And I think that created a lot of insecurities in me. And so
Kind of like set the tone.
Right. So but it wasn't like that at the beginning. He told me everything he knew I needed to hear.
Yeah.
So until he had me. And once he had me, that's when he felt it was okay to begin to show his true colors.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's go to that night. Okay. So you're a deputy. You're in the sheriff's department. You have a gun. You're a badass. Right? Okay. So what happened? You had finally reached a point in your relationship where you said enough.
Right.
And what was that turning point?
Right. Well, when you go through situations like this, you don't realize how much it's affecting your children.
Right. You don't.
And your children know more than what we give them credit for. And because there was never anything physical or never a whole lot that happened in front of my children, I thought they were okay, but they weren't. My daughter at the time, she was 11. She came to me a day, he was at work, and she was in tears. She was in tears, and she told me how scared she was for me. And she proceeded to tell me that she was afraid he was going to hurt me. And then she told me that she heard us fighting all of the time at night because our arguments and all of that happened normally at night. He would keep me up all night.
Yeah, I went through that too.
Right. And so she said that she would actually sit outside of our bedroom door with a phone in hand because she wanted to make sure she can call 911 had he hurt me.
Oh my God.
She said she would never go to sleep until she knew I was sound asleep. And that crushed me.
Oh my gosh, poor baby.
That crushed me. And it was like a stab in the gut. And I said, I cannot allow my daughters to think that this behavior is okay, that this is healthy. I've got to do something to get away from this man. And by then, the marriage had it was destructive. It had escalated, the abuse, the control, the manipulation, the threats of suicide he used to try to attempt to keep me there. It was to the point where I just could not handle it anymore. And
how did you do it? How did you find your strength?
Oh goodness. Really at that time I didn't have a whole lot of a faith system or anything like that. I grew up with faith, but I kind of, God wasn't someone I ran to. In my mind at the time, he was a God of discipline, and I almost felt like I was hiding from him for a long time. And, I prayed a couple of times, but it wasn't really an honest prayer. And really at that moment in time, it was my daughters who gave me the strength to say enough. I did not want them to experience that hurt anymore and to think that that is how a woman is supposed to be treated.
Right.
And so I began to plan how I was going to get away from him, how we were going to end this marriage. And we had split up several times.
Right.
But I'd always take him back.
I know. Me too.
Well, this was a crazy thing that happened, but that whole week I was praying about, okay, you know, if this is what you want me to do. And mind you, I grew up thinking there's no divorce. You cannot divorce. It is not okay to divorce. I grew up in a church who taught that. And while I do understand that, I don't think it applies to these abusive situations.
Absolutely.
And I wasn't safe. We weren't safe. You know, he had threatened to burn the house down, all these things by then. And so I knew I needed to get away. So I was really praying about, okay, should I do this? Or I am going to do this, but how should I do this? I was cleaning my bedroom, and my hand went up for some reason, and my wedding ring flew off my hand,
Wow.
bounced on the floor underneath my dresser. And it landed, I looked underneath the dresser, it landed on a stack of pornography that he was hiding.
Wow.
Tell me that wasn't a God thing.
No kidding.
So that was my opportunity to find an excuse to say we need to
Right.
split up. So he came home. I confronted him about the pornography. I said I couldn't do this anymore. We have had several arguments by this time already about the abuse that he had subjected me to sexually. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. And of course he cried.
Of course.
And asked me to give him another chance. And I could tell that he wasn't going to leave easily. So I said, you know what? I just need some time. I need us to spend some time apart because I have a lot of thinking to do. And he actually agreed. So he went to his mother's house. And after he did that, I made it a point to change the locks in the house. I changed bank accounts.
Couldn't do it fast enough,
I couldn't
huh?
do it fast enough. I changed bank accounts. I changed insurances. All that I needed to do in order to be able to move forth. But unfortunately, he started realizing that it was serious this time. So when I was not telling him he could come back, he became angry.
And isn't that one of the most dangerous times when you're escaping because
Yes.
they get desperate?
Yes.
And that's where a lot of women get killed.
Absolutely. When you leave an abusive situation is the most dangerous time for you.
Right.
And you should be hyper vigilant at this time. However, I thought I had all of my bases, you know, I thought I had my plan in place, my safety plan in place. And, you know, I did everything that you were taught to do. I did the documentation of everything that he
Right.
did, the threats, because he was beginning to threaten me. He had started stalking me, although I didn't know it at first. It came out a little later, but he started stalking me, so he knew my every move. He was extremely clever. And then when he realized that nothing that he was doing was working anymore, as far as control and taking him back, because he was again threatening suicide. He was, saying that at one time before I actually changed my bank account, he pulled all the funds out of the account.
Wow.
And then he said, how are you going to pay your bills? So he did everything that he could possibly to have me take him back again.
Right.
And this time I wasn't doing that. So he became angrier and he started displaying more dangerous behaviors. And to the point to where he actually attempted to set my 11-year-old daughter up to meet him. And thankfully, luckily, we were able to intervene in that because he was trying to intimidate her to meet him outside of the mailboxes close to our house. I know in my heart he was going to try to take her just to hurt me.
Yeah.
And as soon as that happened, we immediately called police. We filed a report. And while there were no charges in that moment, because there was nothing concrete for them to go off of, they advised for me to go get a restraining order. We did this the next morning and it was granted. Unfortunately, the first restraining order I attempted to get was not granted.
Why? I don't get that.
So it was actually after a time that he threatened to burn the house down. And my friend heard the threat, and so she called the police, and he went to jail that night. And went to go get the restraining order, and of course I had the temporary one, but not the permanent
one, right?
The magistrate very nicely said, "Oh, well, this doesn't sound like abuse, honey. This sounds more like you guys are having normal
What?
relationship problems."
Burning down your house with your family in it is
Right.
Okay.
So she almost justified it, saying, "It looks like he just did this because he was angry." And of course, in that moment, I'm already humiliated because there are people surrounding me in the courtroom, and you can't do this privately. You do this in front of
I
other
know.
people. And here I am, and I wanted validation. I wanted someone to tell me, yes, you are in an abusive situation.
Yeah.
And this unvalidated me.
Oh,
and so
gosh.
I think with that, it really hurt me psychologically. So then I started second guessing myself after that. And then I started thinking, well, maybe it isn't as bad. Maybe she's right. Maybe this is just normal marriage problems. Maybe we can work things out. And so I ended up taking him back with the with the, what word am I trying to say? With the intention that we were going to go through counseling.
Okay.
And so I said, I will take you back, but we have to go through counseling. We have to.
But was this in that time frame?
This was in that last, a little bit before the year, or a year prior to that.
Okay.
A little less than a year prior to that. And so this was the worst year of our marriage. I mean, it was horrible, horrific. And so we did go to a couple sessions of counseling because he agreed to it at first, and then he didn't want to do it anymore. So our marriage again took a toll, and that led up to that night. And so I got the restraining order that morning after I told him to leave, and I didn't hear anything from him for about a week. I heard nothing, and in my mind I was thinking, wow, this is nice.
Yeah.
I'm not getting threatening phone calls. He is not attempting to, to put fear in me. He's not threatening suicide. This is really nice.
He was making a plan.
Exactly. And little did I know at the time that's exactly what he was doing. He was formulating his plan. I was hoping in that moment that it was a reality check for him.
Right.
That he would say, okay, this is real now. That's not what he was doing. And so, again, mind you, he was following me around, and I didn't know it. He was extremely clever, and he was very smart.
Yeah, they are.
Very
that way.
smart.
Well, take me to that night.
Yes.
Take me to that night. What time is it?
So it's about 10:30 at night. About 10 o'clock when I left work. I actually was on light duty, and what light duty means is if you have an injury, a work-related injury, then they put you have to do a civilian type job. So I was not in uniform that night. I had a sprained ankle, and I didn't have a weapon on me, and I was working kind of office type stuff at the jail,
Right.
at the sheriff's office jail. And what's crazy is that my sergeant and my lieutenant that night called me into the office that same night, and they wanted to speak to me. And I went into the office, and they looked concerned, and they said, hey, we just want you to know that you have to be careful. You have to be careful because we have seen things like this go terribly wrong.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
And I was like, I really appreciate your concern, Sarge and Lieutenant. I really appreciate that, and thank you so much for caring, but he hasn't contacted me in a week. I don't think he's going to do anything because I lived with my mother at the time. My mother actually was living with me at the time.
Okay.
And I said, my mom's home with my daughter. My brother actually came from out of town to visit that week, and he's not gonna dare to do anything. I'm okay. And they said, well, Doris, just be careful.
Right.
Watch your back, make sure nobody's following you. And I said, exactly. And I told them, I change routes every night. I made sure I knew nobody was following me. I did everything I needed to do. I documented everything. I would call my mother as soon as I'd leave work to say, hey, Mom, I'm on my way home. If if you don't hear from me in about half hour, you know to call police.
Wow.
This was something that we had in our safety plan. I did everything I was supposed to do. What I did not realize is that he would be waiting for me in front of my own home,
Right.
hiding underneath the steps
Did
of
your
my home.
instincts tell you anything? I mean, sometimes your instincts are God-given gifts.
Right.
And before your brain even registers, I know for myself that before my brain would even register, I would have this knowing that something is not right.
Right.
And it took me a long time to trust myself and listen.
Right.
And step back and go,
Right.
okay, what's
Yeah.
up?
Yes.
So what happened?
Absolutely. I was perfect at that in my line of work, but I was horrible at it in my own personal life. So when I drove up to my house, you know, did all the normal things. Nobody was following me. I had called my mom, hey, I'm on my way home. As soon as I come up on my home, I see an obstacle in my driveway, and it was this large black trash can with the red letters ACE on it. And so I thought, that's kind of interesting. Why is that in my driveway? And
Right.
then I recognized that it was the trash can that belonged to the vacant home, the people who used to live in the vacant home on the right side of our home. And I said, well, maybe somebody thought it was ours and placed it in the middle of the driveway. That gave me that sixth sense, that
Yeah.
feeling, that weird feeling in the back of your neck, the hair standing up.
Yeah.
But I rationalized it. I said, you know what? Somebody probably thought it was mine.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why that's there. So because that trash can was in the middle of my driveway, I wasn't able to park where I normally. I didn't park in the garage because my garage was full of junk.
Right.
So I never parked in the garage. I always parked in the front driveway. But it forced me to park on the far right side, which was very dark, next to the vacant home.
So he had done this on purpose.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes. We found out that he actually placed that trash can in there. He filled it up with water from the vacant home. And when it was dark enough, he drug it over there. He was dressed in all black that night. He drug it in the middle of the driveway. And actually, he loosened the light bulbs of my garage door lights so
Okay.
that it would be dark. So he had placed that there, and it forced me to park on the right side where there were no clear views to the windows in my home.
Okay.
So again, I thought, that's weird, but whatever, you know, somebody probably just put it there. So I parked on the right side, and I go to try to get out of my car. I try to get my purse and my cell phone, and I'm trying to get out of my car, and I was stumbling a little bit because I had my sprained ankle.
Right.
So I'm stumbling a little bit, but I get out of my car and I stand up, and as soon as I look up, I see this black silhouette rushing towards me.
Oh my God. What did you feel? What did you do?
You know, when you are in a situation like that, a million thoughts go through your mind in seconds.
Did you freeze?
I was shocked, but it happened so quickly. You know, he came up to me, he grabbed my arm, and he said, "You're coming with me." And then I recognized it was him. He was wearing a black hat, everything black. And I said, "No, I'm not." And I flung my arm back, and I said, "I'm not going with you." And he said, "Oh, yes, you are." And this is when he showed me his gun, and he pointed it at me. And of course, he kept it close to him. He was a Marine, and he knew tactics and all of that. And he kept it close to him and pointed at me. He said, "Yes, you are. You're going with me." And then I froze for a second, and I said, "Why are you doing this? Don't do this. Please don't do this." And he says, "Let's go." And then he grabbed me. So I had to make a split-second decision in that moment.
Right.
Do I try to get away from him and fight him and, you know, run the risk of him shooting me and then going after my family
family.
inside the home? or do I take this elsewhere?
Yeah, I
Do
hear
I
ya.
take this fight elsewhere? And that's what I chose to do. He was parked up the street, and I was praying that somebody would see something
Yeah.
out a window. I didn't feel comfortable screaming. I was crying, obviously, but I didn't feel comfortable screaming. I was just so scared that he would shoot me. And I just tried to talk him through it. Why are you doing this? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Please don't do this. And then he forced me into his car, and we got on the highway, and the whole time he was cussing me out, yelling at me, pointing his gun at me. And
Was he on anything?
no, he wasn't. He never did drugs that I know of. I don't believe he did that night. It's not something that came out in the reports or anything. I think he knew exactly what he was doing. He was full of rage. Wow. He was. It was just evil on him.
Did you notice that his eyes changed?
Yes.
It's like they get black.
Right. It was evil.
Yeah.
That's all I can explain it. He was just evil.
You saw a demon.
Angry. Yeah. It was like
I
a
know.
demon. It was truly worse than I had ever seen him do ever.
Takes your breath away.
It really does. And
I
I was
know.
terrified. I was truly terrified. And I just kept thinking, this cannot be the way I go. This cannot be the way that my life ends. And I kept thinking about my daughters.
Yeah.
And kept thinking, okay, I have to escape. He can't do this to me. I have to get away. And the whole time he's pissed. He's yelling, calling me names, every name in the book. He's just so angry. And then he's telling me how dare I put a restraining order against him, and did I think I was going to get away with it, and who do I think I'm going to be with? If he can't have me, no one else can have me. So I'm trying to remain calm, and he did other things while in the car, because he actually took me to this place called Boone, Colorado. I don't know if you're familiar with
I'm a
Boone.
native of Colorado.
Booneville.
I have never heard of it.
It's in the middle of nowhere, truly Booneville. That's probably why they call the town Boone,
Okay.
close to Pueblo. And this is a town apparently that he grew up in. He was very familiar with this town, and so he took me to the middle of some train tracks, dark, nothing around. And then I thought, my God, he is going to kill me. He's going to leave me in the train tracks. He's probably going to kill himself. This is it. So that, after taking me to the train tracks, he, forced sex on me. And the whole time I'm thinking, how can I fight him? How can I don't have a means. I couldn't fight him. Mm-hmm. I couldn't fight him. I was trained in self-defense. I had fought guys bigger than him in the jails and successfully was able to defend myself. And here I was in this situation. I couldn't even fight. I felt almost as though I was that 6 and 7-year-old little girl that had been molested as a little girl. It's almost like I reverted back to that little girl. I could not do anything. All I could do was cry. All I could do was plead with him and say, please don't do this. Please don't make me do this. And then, he wouldn't even let me get out of the car to go pee. I mean, that's how bad it was. And at one point, he let me put one leg out and keep one leg in to be able to pee. And I said, okay, I'll do what you want me to do. And there was some Taco Bell. I remember the little symbol of Taco Bell on the brown paper napkins that were on the floorboard. And I said, can I use those to clean myself? And he said yes. And really, I was saying, if he's going to take my life, I'm leaving evidence. So I wiped with that, and this was after he did his act. Mm-hmm. I wiped with that, and I left him, and I used my one leg I had out to squish it down into the dirt and hopefully have it stay there. Because I was already thinking, I want him, if he takes my life and doesn't kill himself, I want him to get caught.
Right.
I'm already thinking like that. But then I said that night in my mind, I didn't say it to him, I said, I cannot let him take my life. He cannot take my life. This can't be it.
And you were certain that
Yes.
he's going to kill me.
Yes, I knew in my heart he was going to try to kill me. I knew
Right.
it. And I said, I cannot let him take my life. My little girls need me. Mm-hmm. So then, because I had a cell phone, remember, and I had a work pager, he had taken those away from me. And those started going off like crazy. My mom and my oldest daughter had recognized that I had gotten there because they looked outside and
saw the car.
saw the car when I didn't get home at a reasonable time. They searched for me. They called the police immediately, and the search began. And so they were trying to get a hold of me. And then they were trying to get a hold of him. They were calling his phone. And then we saw, he saw, the caller ID portion where it shows what number it came from. Excuse me. He recognized that one of them was the dispatch, because I had it listed as dispatch, sheriff's office dispatch. And he said, oh crap, they're looking for us. And I said, what do you expect? I was supposed to be home. I mean, what do you expect? So then he was vulnerable in that moment.
Yeah.
And I used that
How?
against him. So I said, yes, they are looking for us, and you need to take me home. If you take me home, I promise I won't tell them what you did here. Just take me home. And then he starts crying.
Okay.
And then he starts crying, telling me how horrible he felt about what he did to me. That's the only way he felt he could gain my attention. And that he really loved me. And that he just wanted our marriage to work.
Wow.
And so if you can imagine, as you can imagine, in that moment, I was so angry inside.
Oh, I bet. I've been there. I know.
And as much as I wanted to lash out at him, I think this is where my law enforcement training helped me to remain calm. I used it. I made him believe I was going to take him back. And as crazy as it sounds, he started to believe me. He started to believe me. So that it's a long story, because there was a lot more that happened in that moment and everything that I told him. But I got him to allow me to stop at a convenience store, or he took me to a convenience store, because again, the phones were off the hook. I said, we have to get there right away. We have to get there. And make a long story short, I was starting to feel sick. I was already starting to feel sick. I was feeling like I needed to throw up. And obviously, after going through something like that. So I said, I need to stop somewhere. I need something to drink. And so we stopped at this convenience store on Highway 50.
Okay.
And I don't remember even the name of it, but I remember clearly what it looked like and the young clerk that was there. And so I wanted him to allow me to stay in the car while he went and got me something to drink. But he said, no, you need to go inside with me. And I said, well, I really don't feel good. I don't want to, I don't feel good. And he said, no, you need to go in with me. And I said, well, I need to use the bathroom anyways. So we get out of the car, and he's watching my every move. He's not letting me have any space.
I can't imagine.
He is watching my every move. And we go into the convenience store, and I look directly at the clerk. And I look at we make eye contact. It's a young man, and I look at him, and I just look at him, and I'm praying that he's getting something I don't know that he ever did, but I'm praying that he sees something's not right. Of course, I had, makeup running down my face and all of that, and my eyes were obviously red from crying, but he just kind of he looked baffled, but that's it. And I didn't want to get him into any...
Right.
So I said, well, I need to use the bathroom. And I was hoping, well, maybe there's a way to escape in the bathroom,
right.
I don't know. So my ex took me to the bathroom, and he inspected it first. And then he allowed me to go into the bathroom. And of course, there's no escape route, no windows, nothing. And so I closed the door and locked it. And I said, maybe I can stay here. Maybe I can just lock myself in here. And then the logical side of me said, no, dummy. He's probably got more weapons on him, and he can break through this door. I mean, who am I kidding? So I was desperate. I was desperate. I did not know how I was going to get away. And I did something that I hadn't done in years. I turned on the faucet because I didn't want him to hear me crying. And I turned them out loud, and I looked in the mirror, and I just couldn't believe, looking back at my reflection, where I was at in that moment. And I said, okay, God. Okay, God. I said, if you're there, I need you. I know I haven't talked to you in a long time, but I need you, God. I can't leave my girls, and I know that this is not what you intended for me, so please help me. So I splashed my face after that and tried to compose myself and dried up, opened the door, and he grabbed a bottle of Propel grape water and a candy bar. So he paid for it. He got me into the truck because he opened the door for me and got me into the truck. And of course I'm, stumbling the whole time because I have a really bad sprained ankle,
Right.
and it's hurting at this moment in time. It's throbbing. Thank you.
Get some tissue.
He paid for the Propel grape drink and the candy bar, and then we went back into the truck. It was actually a Tahoe, and I took a sip of the Propel, and again I got nauseous, and I started kind of dry heaving, and he's, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm not okay. I'm not feeling good right now. I feel like I'm going to pass out." And so then I said, I really need water. I really need water. And he said, okay, let's go get some water. I said, not flavored, just regular water. I think that's what I need. And so he says, okay, hon, okay, babe, we'll go get you some water. Let's go. And I said, no, I can't. I'm going to pass out. By this time, he had already turned on the car.
Okay.
The cell phones that he had, mine included, he put in the center console. And I said, please just let me stay in the car. I promise, just let me stay in the car. And he looked at me and he said, you're not going to do anything stupid, are you? And I said, no, I've already told you we're going to work things out. I don't feel good. I need some water. And he said, swear on your daughters. He knew I never did that. Never. And he says, swear on your daughters that you're not going to do something stupid. And of course, in that moment, I'm in survival mode.
Right.
So in my mind, I'm like, please forgive me, God, but yes. And I told him, I swear on my daughters that I'm not going to do anything stupid. Of course, it wasn't anything stupid, right?
That's right.
So that's how I justified it. And so
I would do the same thing. That makes perfect sense.
So I said that, and he goes, okay, I'll go get you some water. So he made it a point to grab the phones. He goes, well, I'm taking these. He grabbed the phones because he didn't want me to contact anyone. Stuffed them because he used to wear big pants, stuffed them in his pockets. But he failed to take the keys.
Right on.
Tell me that was not
That
a
was
God
God.
thing. And what you have to see in this situation is that he was extremely meticulous the whole time. He did not lose track of me. He was extremely meticulous. For him to have left the keys in the car was totally God. And I knew as soon as he got out of the car, he went into the store. And of course, the convenience stores are all glass.
Right.
You can see. So as soon as he went into the store, I said, this is my opportunity. So I jumped into the driver's side. And he is 6 feet tall, and I'm 5'0", right? So I jumped in, and it was literally
Way
like
back,
this,
yeah.
and the steering wheel hit me about here. And I put it in reverse. And as soon as I put it in reverse, he saw that the lights moved, and so he turned around, and I saw him look at me, and it was, I'll never forget the look. He wanted to kill me in that moment. He was shocked, but at the same time, he probably wished he would have killed me in that moment. So then I put it on drive and I did a sharp turn, got onto the highway on the wrong side of the highway of the street. And I was just so frantic. I wanted to get away, and
Were you shaking?
Yes, I was shaking, but I was like, oh my God. All I kept saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And so I saw I was on the wrong side. So I got over to the right side. And then I was like, okay, I can do this. I can get home. And so I started flashing the lights. I started honking the horn, driving like a maniac, hoping there was a state trooper somewhere to pull me over. But there was no one the whole time. There was no state trooper, no cop or anything. It's a very secluded area.
Yeah, I've been there.
I thought, well, Highway 50 connects with I-25.
Right.
So I know
Doesn't Highway 50 connect with 115?
I'm sure it does, but I wasn't aware of that. I knew that I connected with I-25,
Okay.
and that's what I was looking for, I-25. And I said, okay, if I can get to I-25, I'd know where I was at. And I knew my family had been looking for me because of the phones going off the hook and all of that. So I said, I just got to get home. And I kept thinking, oh my God, but this whole time, Janelle, I can't even explain the feeling. I was in panic mode, but at the same time, this peace was over me.
Wow.
It was almost as though God sent his angels to surround me, because I have no idea how I drove in that state.
Yeah.
I couldn't even see hardly over the steering wheel. And I was able to get to I-25, and I said, okay, I'm just going to go straight home because I want my family to know that I'm okay. And I get to my neighborhood, and I see the lights, the police lights.
Yeah.
They had blocked off my whole area where my home was. And I said, thank you, God, I'm safe. And I turned the corner. They obviously don't know who I am, so as soon as I turn that sharp corner and I stop, they don't know who I am, so they draw their weapons, the police that were there. And I just put up my hands, and I heard somebody say, it's Doris. And so
Oh, God, your family must have been
they were,
Oh,
can you imagine as a mother?
no.
My mother
I know.
was frantic. And so I just had my hands up, and then a deputy came over, opened the door, and I came out of the truck. I couldn't even stand. I collapsed. And he caught me. And so that's when I did my true panicking.
Yeah.
I couldn't even talk for a little bit. I was just crying and crying. And then I was able to say, he raped me. Because they didn't even know what. They said, where is he? Where is he? Where's Jaime? Where is he? And honestly, some of them thought I killed him. Some of them thought that maybe he tried to hurt me and I killed him. But because they knew knew that I was considered tough in my line of work. But I just said, no, I escaped. He's still out there. And so then we had a detective there, and I was able to see my mom. And my dad actually was there too, and he was in tears. And I'd never seen my dad cry other than one time, and he was in tears. And my daughter. And so after, because I wanted to see them, I said, I just need to see my family. And then I was able to, they took me to do my SAINT exam and all that. But after all that, I was able to answer some questions, and they caught him the next morning. So we went all night fearing that
he was going to come and kill everybody.
Right. But they had deputies in the area. They didn't leave us alone. And I was in the hospital all night anyways, but my family, I wanted to make sure they were protected, so they left deputies, law enforcement in the area. And they caught him the next morning. Pueblo Police Department caught him the next morning.
Where?
Hiding in his dad's apartment in the kitchen cupboards.
Oh, what a coward. Wow.
So he has been in jail and now in prison since then.
And he was sentenced to what?
He is in prison for life. What he committed, was a felony
Amen.
1 act, the premeditation. and the first-degree kidnapping with bodily harm and sexual assault. That was a felony one in the state of Colorado. And in the state of Colorado, if you're convicted of a felony one, then it's mandatory life in prison. So he will be there for the rest of his life. And he needed to. He needs to. He was a dangerous man. I found out later that he had abused other women and that he had been to jail for domestic violence, believe it or not. And here I am, a cop, not even knowing that my husband had been to jail for domestic violence. He had been actually physically abusive with these women. And then, of course, the next morning it was all over the news. His face was plastered everywhere. One of his exes came forth and told the district attorneys that she had been hiding from him. Wow. So this was a dangerous man. I love my life. I am able to look at myself now and love who I am. Mm-hmm. For a long time, I did not.
Yeah.
I am able to say I'm worthy mm-hmm. to be loved, to be respected. Then he put an amazing man in my life who I know God sent to help heal my heart. And I cry every time I talk about him. He's a wonderful man. My husband, Kevin. It was not easy for him.
I bet. I know. My husband now, too.
I was a royal pain to him because I had issues. And I even told him, understand I have problems. I have trust issues. I'm insecure. So if you want to go on this ride with me, feel free. But you're going to have to deal with that. And he was extremely patient with me. And we have been together for 8 years now.
And you have a little boy?
We have a little boy together, 5-year-old little boy. And so I have my 2 girls, Selena and Cynthia, and Alex now. And our family is awesome. I mean, they're my world, and they're just blessings that God placed in my life. And I am grateful for every single breath that I take.
Right. I know. Me too. I can relate. I can totally relate with you. So let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Do you forgive him?
Yes.
How long did that take?
It took me a long time.
Me too.
That was the piece I refused to surrender until the very end.
But you have to.
But I had to.
Because it only hurts you.
Right. So I have this phrase that was told to me around the time that I was struggling with forgiveness. I was told, by you not forgiving him, it's like you drinking poison and wishing that he would be the one that dies.
Right, I've heard that.
And it was true because I did not like that feeling of bitterness that I was holding on.
It's like a cancer.
Right, he still had control over me. He was still controlling me, whether he knew it or not. And I needed to let that go. And then because I had this newfound intimate relationship with God, I'm not perfect. I've done things that I'm not proud of.
Right.
And for me to have received his forgiveness, I started thinking, who am I to withhold forgiveness from someone else? Yeah, maybe, what he did was horrific to me, but that's going to be between him and God. I'm no longer going to carry that burden. Amen. I am releasing it to God. And it took a lot of prayer to get there because I did not want to do it. My statement at the time was, God can forgive him, but I ain't gonna.
Right.
But there was something, it was keeping me from moving ahead in my life. And when I finally let go of that, when I finally surrendered that, my life blossomed.
Yeah,
my life blossomed.
How that happens.
My marriage now blossomed. And if you ask my husband, he can tell you exactly when, around the time frame where I finally surrendered that because he saw a difference in me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I wouldn't trade that for the world.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
So now you're not a sheriff anymore.
Right.
And you are doing what?
So right now I focus full-time on my advocacy work, on my speaking. I actually travel and do speaking engagements on these topics.
And you met Oprah?
I did.
I love that.
I did. I was on the Oprah show in 2007. her producers reached out to the district attorney. This was after the trial, and the district attorney got a hold of me, which the district attorneys were fantastic, by the way. Jeff Lindsay here in El Paso County. But they reached out to them and they said, hey, we have a producer from the Oprah show who wants to talk to you. And I said, what? And they said, yeah, maybe just talk to them, see what they want from you. And I said, okay, so it doesn't hurt to just talk to them.
Is it hard to keep reliving and talking about it?
It used to be. Now it's just a healing thing. It feels good to get it out.
Therapy?
Yes, it's therapeutic. It really is.
Have you found that you've met a lot of women that have experienced domestic violence, mental, emotional, physical, sexual abuse by their spouse or their significant other or someone,
Right.
whoever they're dating or?
Yes, sadly, yes, there are too many. Studies show in the state of Colorado, 1 in 3 women. Nationally, it's 1 in 4 women, and they're even including men, 1 in 7 men. So it happens all around us, whether we like to see it or not. And I always tell people, if it hasn't affected you directly, it will affect you in some form in the future.
Right.
Someone in your circles will experience
So what's your
this.
advice? How would you explain to someone if you or someone you love or you know that you suspect there's domestic violence or sexual abuse going on? How should they handle it?
If they're going through it personally or if someone they know is going through it?
It's someone they know.
Right. So I always tell people, in our culture, we always talk about, mind your own business and all of these things. Well, this is one situation where you don't mind your own business.
Right.
Say something, not something judgmental. Please don't criticize the person who's going through it because that will push them away. Mm-hmm. I always advise that they say, hey, let me chat with you, whether it's through coffee, whether it's through, getting together and saying, hey, I've been recognizing these signs about your relationship and I'm really worried about you. I'm scared for your safety and this is why.
Right.
Can we talk about this? And they may or may not get a response. But the important piece is for them to really impress upon the person that they love, the person that they care for, is that they're there for them.
Right.
That they've got their back, that they're going to support whatever decision that they make, but they're there for them. And to validate that, hey, this is not okay. What you're going through is not okay. This is abuse.
Yes.
And validate, because a lot of times we haven't received that validation.
Right. You're right.
I didn't. I thought it was just a bad relationship. Mm-hmm. And so just validating for them that, hey, this is not okay. We can go to the local domestic violence center, which is here locally, it's TESA. We can go there and we can talk to an advocate or we can put together a safety plan and I'll walk alongside you. And what's also important to remember is that if you're that friend, be patient.
Right.
Because they're not always going to follow your advice, but at least you're planting a seed.
Exactly. Well, Doris has written a book. And it is all about your story,
Right.
all the details, your emotions, everything.
Right.
So it is called Clothed in Strength. Kidnapped at gunpoint and sexually assaulted by her estranged husband, a woman escapes and discovers her true strength, courage, and faith. You can get it on Amazon.
It's available on paperback or Kindle on Amazon.com. It's available on BarnesandNoble.com, through Nook or paperback, or through the publishing company, which is ZulonPress.com.
That's awesome. And you're going to start doing some advocacy with Empowered Colorado, the Self-Image and
Yes.
Self-Esteem Center.
Yes. I'm excited.
Self-Image and Self-Esteem Center, yeah.
Yes.
So, and you're teaching self-defense and
Right.
You're validating these girls, and we're on a mission together. So we have
Yes.
been brought back together because we met at a Tessa Auxiliary
Right.
meeting, and I spoke.
Right.
And here we are, like a year later,
Right.
and now we're going to be working together. And I have to tell you that my heart just fills with such love and respect for you that I'm so happy you made it.
Thank you.
And I'm just so proud of you, and I want to know you forever.
Thank you. And the feeling is mutual. I actually feel like I've known you forever.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to thank you for allowing us into your home and your lives and your heart today, and sharing Doris's story of such triumph, overcoming such extreme odds and flying. Isn't she amazing? Thank you so much. I want to just let you know that our Empowered Show, the I Am Empowered Show, is a vehicle for us to utilize to support the Empowered Colorado program. So what that allows us to do is create scholarships for girls and women in need, because most people don't have it, and we're not turning anybody away. If you're in a position to pay it forward, please go to our website at empoweredcolorado.com and go to donate. It's tax deductible, it's a write-off, and you could be changing and saving a life. Thank you so much for your support, and thank you for letting us into your hearts. Be good to yourself. Be good to others. God bless.